Compass Mining makes Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone. Start mining in as little as 48 hours with our turnkey hardware, online and mining directly to your Bitcoin wallet within 2 business days. Find out more at compassmining.io and get started now. Hey miners, welcome back to the channel. McNallie Money, the new home of power mining analysis. Tuesday morning, another absolute banger for Bitcoin, breaking through the $100,000 Canadian psychological milestone this morning, in addition to $72,000 US. So we're going to talk about the price action, obviously having a big impact on the Bitcoin mining stocks as well. Plus, we got some news out from DMG and Bitfarms that we want to talk about in today's presentation. Before we do, smash a like, feel free to subscribe, and let us know in the comment section below where you're watching from today, specifically any Canadians, as we had that huge $100,000 milestone cracked this morning in the price of Bitcoin. With that being said, let's get into today's video. Okay, guys, so that's right. Tuesday morning, and an absolute phenomenal start to the day, not only for the price of Bitcoin now surpassing 72,500 US and eclipsing 101,000 here in Canada, but also for the price of the miners and obviously hash price. So a lot to dissect today, Anthony, but overall extremely bullish for the Bitcoin market, something we've been anticipating on the channel for quite some time here leading into the US election next week.
Yeah, no, another great day, another green day. We've had a great rally, with the Canadian price reaching over 100,000. Well, we're only 1,000 away from the all-time high now, so it's just a matter of when, not if, whether it's today or tomorrow. But we predicted last week that we'd see movement on the Bitcoin price, and it was likely we'd get to an all-time high relatively quickly. Who knows where it goes to after that? I mean, the constant, even CNBC now. I was listening this morning for a change. I listened to CNBC a lot about in the last cycle. We're going through the bull market, and they were still trying to get their heads around Bitcoin on that program. To be honest with you, many of the analysts there were sort of like really not really paying much attention, and all these speakers were coming on and saying, "Well, the price is going up 10% today, so you should be paying more attention." But the change now, having listened again now a couple of years later. You can see they're paying far more attention, and literally, I think in a half an hour segment I listened to this morning, Bitcoin was raised maybe 6, 7 times during that period. So very much on everyone's storyboard now, and yeah, it's great. What we've seen this morning though, we've seen a little bit of a decoupling with the mining stock. So and this probably goes to the fact that the major indices are down today. So the Dow and the Nasdaq are down. And we've seen some of that correlation with mining stocks before. When the Nasdaq's down, some of the mining stocks are down there. So we've got a bit of a mixed bag. Half are in the green, half in the red. But Bitcoin price is imminently approaching all-time high, which was about $73,800 back in March, if I remember rightly, just before Easter. And it's just a case of when now. And, listening to some of the analysts this morning, there was one analyst came on, and he used to work for Cathie Wood. And he was talking about, the price maybe by 2050, which is, yes, it's, 25 years away now, but he was suggesting a price of 3 million. And that would be a 16% year-on-year increase in the price of this asset class. And he said that's not an unreasonable prediction. And so, again, it's just adding to the story about Bitcoin, and the fact that nobody's really suggesting any sort of like fall off the end of a cliff. People are sort of like saying now it's getting to the position where the adoption is more meaningful. We're talking about, we're hearing even at the conference in Nashville, we heard RFK Jr. and President Trump state at the conference in Nashville that they were looking to have Bitcoin as a reserve currency to the US dollar. So again, this adoption keeps going forward and forward, and there's no let up here, and we'll come on to talk about ETFs in a second.
You're totally right there, Anthony. It does seem like we've reached that critical mass. We talk about this snowball mentality, the hurry up and wait, nothing, 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 and then everything all at once. It's funny you bring up the mainstream media now, so against Bitcoin for so long, just like a lot of these institutional funds. And now the tune has changed, complete 180 from what they were saying a few years ago. So you talk about some of the ETF inflows. I want to bring up the chart here in a second, but before we do, we're talking about new all-time highs. We're getting close to 72, 73,000 US, 100,000 here in Canada. Ironically, it's not necessarily the value of Bitcoin going up. As we all know, one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. It's the relative value of these currencies going down. So I wanted to ask you, Anthony, in your opinion, how do these psychological milestones impact retail investors and this FOMO or herd mentality that we've talked about on the channel?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, me and you have been here throughout all the bear cycle, but quite a few people left the space. The die-hard people who are firmly orange pill, they stayed in the Bitcoin space. They've stayed in the mining space. They picked up the mining stocks in 2023 when they were literally rock bottom. And now we're starting to see a little bit more retail investors coming back into the space. That's been helped this year, obviously, with the ETFs being approved back in January and giving people an alternative way of investing in Bitcoin itself without buying the actual crypto asset. And they've really taken off. I mean, in literally 200 days of trading, only 63 days have been red this year in terms of the ETF. So that means more than two-thirds of the days have been green, and there's been some really big green days. There's been days where they've taken over well over $1 billion in Bitcoin. So significant amounts of Bitcoin. We talked yesterday about the largest ETF now having over 400,000 Bitcoin. That's the BlackRock ETF. Surpassing what Michael Saylor, who had the largest for a public company of 250,000. So, and it's just growing and growing. It's just relentless. And as we said before, you and me aren't selling our Bitcoin at the moment, so I don't know who's selling for this ETF to start buying all the Bitcoin, but they're buying multiples of the daily production. So the miners can't produce enough for the likes of these ETFs to purchase. And I think, the adoption, the understanding of Bitcoin now is getting across many more layers out there in the public and more people coming into the space. We believe, it's going to be one of the key messages when it comes to the voting polls next week in the US elections there. I'm believing something like 40 to 50 million people have got some sort of crypto asset held. And that's a significant number of the voting poll. That could be 20, 25% of all voters. So now, obviously, voters have to go out and vote. And that's the issue in most countries. It's getting people to go and vote. I mean, I would say that, most of the Western countries are, having their own fair challenges with regards to politics at the moment. And we've just had our recent elections in the UK, and the voting numbers that came out were just dire. It was really, really low. And so that's probably happened across, a number of other countries as well, where results aren't sort of like going as expected because people just, not interested anymore now, and they find it hard to believe everything you see on the news. And so it's really challenging. But Bitcoin has managed to get through all of this, and we're starting to see numbers coming back into the Bitcoin space. We're seeing numbers coming back into the Bitcoin mining space. So that's attracting the miners. Some of the miners we've talked about, even in the last 3 or 4 weeks, are up 40, 50% in the last 3 or 4 weeks. So we can see that that movement now back in, and hopefully we're at the start of what we call the next bull cycle. And from what the experts out there tell me, there's another 12 months of this bull cycle to go. So early stages, but we're seeing the numbers start to increase.
Yeah, we certainly are. Now we're going to take a look at a chart that you've put together, Anthony, talking about some of those percentage increases in the miners. You made reference to the ETFs, so I'll bring up the chart from HODL 15 Capital. Once again, $479 million into the ETFs on the 28th, you guys. So this is the second consecutive trading day in excess of $400 million. And you're absolutely right, Anthony. We've never had an experiment in human history quite like this, where there's infinite demand and finite supply. It's going to be truly interesting to see what happens in this supply demand equilibrium. We've talked about on the channel any other asset class, gold, silver, oil. Once the economics are there, companies can go out and push farther, deeper, new countries, wherever to find more of this resource. But with Bitcoin, obviously, you can't do that. So, very interesting dynamics emerging in the space right now. So, with that being said, I wanted to bring up our mid morning market update. You made reference earlier saying a mixed bag here. Very strong start to the day. We did see a little bit of a pullback. As you mentioned, some of the miners decoupling slightly from the price of Bitcoin here, Anthony. What are you seeing on the mid morning update so far?
I mean, interestingly, when we don't talk about this company too much, is Argo at the top of the leaderboard at the moment, up nearly 11%. Argo's had its challenges, effectively through 2021. I mean, the first part of 2021, it was one of the most highest traded stocks on the UK London Stock Exchange, along with some of the big banks there like Lloyds and Barclays. Significant amount of shares traded on a daily basis, but Argo got themselves into some real issues with regards to debt, and that debt was collateralized with mining machines. And the mining machines dropped in value as the Bitcoin price dropped in value, and then it became really difficult. And at the 11th hour, just as they were about to go into Chapter 11 effectively, because they'd literally done all the paperwork, it was released on iFacts by one of the admin team by mistake, and then quickly removed from the site. So, Galaxy came in and gave them a lifeline, and they've managed to sort of like hang on now for the last, well, it's coming up to like 2 years in December. Um, they've managed to repay the Galaxy debt. They've also, raise some capital by some dilution to reduce other outstanding debt. They've still got some notes there. I think it's about 40 million of convertible notes, which are due in a few years' time. So they'll still be paying interest on those there, but they're starting to really, look at cost and try and get costs reduced there. Who knows whether they can get through this? It's a real challenging. We've talked about some of the smaller miners, having the lack of capital to grow, to change machines, to pay for energy, to pay for staff. It's a real challenge, and if you can't raise capital, that challenge becomes multiples. But good to see them up today. Highlighting there, that would be well welcomed by the team there. 11% increase. Bitfarms having a good day today. So if you look at miners that maybe from the 1st of October, I mean, I refer really because we discuss this on a daily basis in terms of competition. But for the majority of the last 3 weeks, Bitfarms have actually been in negative territory from where they were at the 1st of October, or the closing price on the 30th. And we're now seeing a nice pullback in today. So they've made a couple of announcements. We'll talk about those later. But nice to see that share price heading up towards 10% today. One of the most popular shares. I think in the competition, there's only CleanSpark and IREN had more people interested in their stock for this competition than Bitfarms. Bitfarms were third, and the stock has not reflected that. But good to see the price up today. Good to see the market cap over $1 billion, which means now there's 11 miners that are over $1 billion, headed up by Marathon Digital, closely followed by then we've got Core Scientific, we've got Riot, we've got CleanSpark, we've got TeraWulf catching CleanSpark now, which is, if you'd have said that to me a year ago, that would be a challenge too far. But TeraWulf are really did exactly what they've said. They've got rid of the debt. They've moved into this HPC space. They're planning that side of it. They've raised some significant amounts of capital in recent weeks, and they're fully focused on delivering HPC. They've got a number of projects that they're building out now. All waiting for now is really an announcement that they've got a client there, and that's probably anticipated. It's got to be built into the price at some point there, and but their market cap is well over nearly $2.6 billion. And I can remember when that share price was 100 million, literally about 18 months ago. And I started buying it in early 2023, and I think it was like 38, 40 cents, 45 cents. I think started buying that stock at. So share price today really good. And Riot's having a good day. They're well over 5% as well, along with Hive at 6% and Bit Digital as well, who many people have moved into space and joined Sam Tabar and his guidance and strategy for Bit Digital. So another popular stock there.
Yeah, very exciting to see the movement in the mining sector, especially for guys like us who've been in this space waiting and waiting for months and months, it seems, Anthony. I'm watching the Bitcoin price in real time. It surpassed 100,000 Canadian during my intro, 101,000 during our discussion. Now we're up to 101,400. Just relentless growth in the price of Bitcoin. Now, you brought up an interesting comment there about some of the performance since we started our Miner Madness competition and the percentage gains in these different Bitcoin mining stocks. So I know you put together a great table for us. We're actually working on getting this on the website as well. So this is going to be live data. We're continuing to add more and more live resources on the website. I also wanted to throw in, we're starting to schedule Q3 interviews, which are available on the website under our calendar feature as well. So make sure you guys check that out. But nonetheless, you've put this table together, Anthony. Can you walk us through some of the highlights here based on share price performance? Compass Mining is your trusted partner in Bitcoin mining. Whether you're investing in one machine or thousands, our customizable solutions are tailored to meet your needs. We are your experts in Bitcoin mining, offering a platform where individuals and businesses can purchase hardware, host machines, and access a range of ancillary Bitcoin mining services. We also specialize in large-scale site development and data center operations. Discover more at compassmining.io and see how we can power your success today.
Yeah, so again, this is list of those miners, the big miners that we cover, and it tells you about the market capitalization of these miners. It tells you about the average volume. I've put in there the current price today. I've put in the increase today as well. So this is live data, and hopefully we'll get this live data onto the website. We're looking at the 5-day change and the month change, which is really important. So we see what's been doing well over the last few days. If you look at the formatting of this, I've actually put some conditional formatting to show that, to highlight where it's darker green, that's where you should be looking at the real increases there. So if you look at the 1 month change, we've talked about this: Riot at 49%, TeraWulf at 43%, CIFR at 44%, Hut at 44%, Hut joining the club at 44%. Really big increase. Not too many people have been talking about Hut lately, but we've had Sue on the podcast recently, gave a great update. We'll get Sue and Asher again at earnings to talk through earnings, and we'll get Asher to go through his Q3 playbook and see if he's achieved exactly what he wants to achieve there. But the share price is certainly reflecting more than double it was when he took over as CEO. So very positive there. Soluna again at 36%, having a good update there. So that's the 1 month change there. I also put in there the 52-week high. So when we talk about these mining companies, doing really well now, believe you me, early in the year, some of these were significantly higher. And if we look at, even the likes of, say, like CleanSpark, their 52-week high was $24.72. So even at today's price of $12.78, it's still halfway there. So even though it's had a good run of 36% in the last month, it's still, it needs to double in price to get to its year high. So maybe some potential for some of these miners to certainly increase there. So I've looked at the 52-week high, I've looked at the 52-week low, and then I've showed the percentage from where they've come from the actual low of the year to show that who's performing quite well. If you look at their TeraWulf at 656% from its low this year. So if you'd have invested in TeraWulf at its low this year, you'd have been sitting on some handsome profits there at 600% there. Another one in there, Core Scientific. So we've mentioned these two as really the top performers in 2024 itself. They're up 450% this year from their low. And bear in mind, their low would have been calculated probably close after they came out of Chapter 11, which was towards the end of January. I think 23rd or 24th of January, they came out of Chapter 11. The final column is interesting because that's the percentage from 52-week high. So this is like which miners are actually getting close to where they've been this year in terms of the high stock price. Two of the miners, and it's Core Scientific and TeraWulf, actually reached their year high yesterday. And even today, they're flirting with all-time highs during the day today. So that shows you where they are. Looking at some of the other ones, you've got some, we've already mentioned CleanSpark, 93% away from all-time high. Riot 69%, Marathon 70%. These are big, big name companies, got a lot of potential to get to the year highs there. Um, and then you've got some at the bottom there. Argo, just talked about there, still 200% away from all-time high. Soluna at 107% away from all-time high. And we've got Gryphon at the bottom there. And we're hoping
Now,
to get Steve Gutterman on the podcast soon to talk through the good news they had yesterday, because we look at their 5-day change now in their share price. It looks like it's turning a corner. So not a great position for the year to date, but certainly in the last few days, we've seen a turnaround in the stock and starting to turn green. And they've now got some sort of looking at the debt on the balance sheet, convert some of that to equity, put them in a much stronger position. And now we just want to see what the plan is now from Steve and the team to take us through the next 6 to 18 months.
yeah, exactly. Hey, Anthony, great update. I had a quick question for you. Sorry to jump in. You talk about some of these big miners, Marathon, CleanSpark, being X percentage away from all-time highs. I just wanted you to walk through some of the newer viewers. The share price that we achieved with some of those companies last cycle, that was before they did a lot of this ATM dilution activity. So can you just explain to people who are looking at this saying, oh my God, 80, 90% away from all-time highs, just the dynamic there?
Yeah, so these highs are actually the last 12 months highs, so we're not looking back to 2021. But I can tell you now that during 2021, the likes of Marathon and Riot, their share price for each company reached close to $80 each. Now, people say, well, when will it get back to $80? The chance of it getting back to $80 are going to take the Bitcoin price to be probably 5 or 6 times higher than it is today, because these companies didn't have as many shares in them days. So during 2021, I think Marathon and Riot had probably about 100 million shares in total circulation. Now they're closer to 300 million shares. So if you want to say like for like, and you'd have to say that the share price would need to get to probably 28, $30 maybe a share, and you're talking at the same level of market capitalization as it was
Gotcha.
in previous periods there. So that's a quick explanation on that there. But this is only talking about the highs from this year. Yeah, some of these share prices were significantly higher back in 2021, 2020. The likes of Hive, the likes of Hut, massively higher. But as you've gone through the dilution phase, you're not looking at like for like then. As soon as a company's diluted, the company's value doesn't change, the number of shares does, and therefore the price of the shares reflects that valuation. So as soon as a company value dilutes, the chances are, when it's a public dilution, automatically the share price will change to allow for that dilution. And we've seen that with the Argo share price, because they've not been able to do an ATM. They have to go to the market and say, look, we're going to dilute by 10 million shares or 20 million shares, and the market straight away prices in that 10 or 20 million dilution, and the share price comes down to reflect that there's no change in the company itself in terms of whole valuation, but there's a change in the share price that reflects the number of shares in issue. The way
Yeah.
that the ATMs have worked, it's been very helpful for mining companies. They've been able to navigate this without people, really noticing. Look at some of those volumes on that table there. So you've got Marathon at 40 million average. This is average volume every day, 40 million. You've got Cores at 10 million. You've got Riot 20, CleanSpark 25, TeraWulf 25. Average volumes. If you're in that company, you want to sell 2 or 3 million shares. Nobody's going to know, because the volumes are significant. If you wanted to sell 60 million shares, people might have an idea then that you're trying to sell something. But and they control this. They will be working with the banks to control when those shares are being sold, and they'll be on. And I think Zach and Matt Schultz at CleanSpark, they're talking with their investment banks on a day-to-day basis. they'll negotiate, they'll talk to them and they'll say, right, now's a good time to release shares, and the price is good at the moment like that, so we're getting good value for the shares to grow. But the shareholders are not aware until earnings. And when the earnings comes out, I've said to people before, look at the front page of the 10Q or the 10K. It tells you on that front page how many outstanding shares there are, and compare that to the last 10K, and that tells you how many shares they've sold in the last sort of 3 months effectively. So within the actual 10K or 10Q, it tell you up until the end of the quarter, but on the front page, it tells you up until the date those earnings are released. So it stops miners trying to do something like, say these are the shares at the end of September, which will be the end of Q3. We've got 10 million shares. If they go and sell 2 million extra shares in the next few weeks, that extra 2 million will show on the front page of the 10Q or 10K. So shareholders can look at that there, and they can see their own mining companies, what they've done with their shares, and how much of the ATMs they've actually used.
No, it's great points you bring up there, Anthony, about the different strategies. I know you put out an article talking about the different forms of raising funding for these companies. So make sure you guys check that out on Compass as well. Interesting, you talk about some of the changes in share price here for these miners. We've also got a few pieces of news that came out today, Anthony. More housekeeping items than anything, but DMG. Interestingly enough, we've been talking with a lot of people about future hash rate contracts and buying hash or buying hash rate. DMG has come out with an announcement today, purchasing Reactor.xyz to offer these hash rate contracts. So I'll let you go through that one. And then we've got an appointment over at Bitfarms.
Yeah, so DMG announced yesterday that it acquired Reactor from Navia Incorporated, and they're a key provider in the digital asset mining and AI data center solutions space. They've got a unique platform with a patented algorithm for dependable hash rate delivery, and enables Bitcoin miners to sell the hash rate to buyers who pay up front and get providing them with a quick and easy access to capital. So, we've seen this before in terms of some of the other miners have been utilizing something similar. Bitdeer have got something that they utilize like this, and we've seen other people come to the market with similar types of projects. The acquisition itself aims to extend the capabilities via the Terra pool, and we had Sheldon on the podcast, and he was trying to explain about that pool being carbon neutral, and therefore given the opportunity for buyers to purchase carbon neutral hash rate. And he sees this effectively as a step towards building a sustainable Bitcoin ecosystem. Now, time will tell whether it pays off, because everything generally comes with a price, and are people prepared to pay a premium for this if it's carbon neutral? Time will tell, but certainly DMG looking to be going in the right direction in terms of only using renewable energy, 100% renewable, and setting the tone that other miners should be following.
Yeah, most definitely. It's very interesting to see this ecosystem they're building out at DMG. Interestingly enough, the video I put out this morning on Control Technologies, this is actually an HVAC company here in Canada that's adopting a Bitcoin standard on their balance sheet. So we're starting to see more and more companies come into this space. And I think as they do, there's going to be more of an appetite for some of these carbon neutral alternatives, as we've seen in other more established kind of industries or sectors. So that's a great update out from DMG. Interesting to see that development from them. In addition to that, we've got news from Bitfarms. So we talked about the appointment of an internal U.S. counsel yesterday. So it does beg the question, Anthony, they're staffing up for something. My prediction is perhaps moving headquarters into the United States, as we've seen with Hut 8, the US BTC merger, but that's just my internal hypothesis or prediction.
Well, this is one of the things that Bitfarms agreed, and also with their largest shareholder, Riot, who were wanting to make sure that they had a lot more independent non-executive directors on the board there that can Also keep an eye on the strategy and whether it fits in line with what the shareholders are expecting. So this is one of the criteria that Riot sort of instigated that Bitfarms pay attention to, and it looks like Bitfarms are now following through and doing all those pointers that were raised, and this was the final one there. So yes, both companies are at a standstill, so we're not going to see any sort of like hostile takeover in the next sort of 18 months. I think 2026 there can be another. Look at it then, and actually during that time, if Riot wanted to, they could still go in and do a friendly bid, put a bid on the table for Bitfarms, and they'd be down to the shells to accept or reject that bid there. So we'll probably find out more at this special meeting what intentions of both companies are. But this is just purely nominations today, and it looks like it's a good nomination. The share price is up, so maybe the two appointments in the last couple of days, or the nomination and the appointment yesterday for the legal counsel, strengthening or potentially strengthening the team at Bitfarms.
Yeah, it certainly is. Great to see that. And again, we've reached out to Ben and many of the other CEOs actually for Q3 earnings interviews, which we're starting to schedule next week. So as we speak, Anthony, Bitcoin within a stone's throw of all-time highs right on my screen, $72,859 US. I think it could happen today. If not today, I'm betting tomorrow. An absolutely fantastic session. Let us know if you're from Canada in the comment section below as we hit that 101, creeping on 102,000 Canadian milestone today. Feel free to also drop your Miner Madness current ranking below as well. We'd be curious to see that. You guys, thanks for your time today. Hit the subscribe button. Feel free to smash the like button, and we'll see you here tomorrow.